Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. I'm making this video here about the credit repair process. What do you got to do to get yourself started, to start getting some traction, to figure out, hey, I want to get my credit repaired. I know I got to get this stuff done. If my credit is not repaired, it puts me into a worse situation when I'm trying to get a apartment, or you're trying to buy a house, trying to get a car, everything, even going to get a job. Credit is just such a big deal in our economy, because that's just the way that companies look at people to see if they can trust us. That's just the way it is. And if you think about it, there has to be some sort of system in place to figure out if you could trust someone, if that person is going to borrow money from you. It's just what we live in. So rather than trying to figure out some type of gimmick, trying to come up with all of these different things to not repair your credit, I want you to focus on repairing your credit. I want you to dig in and do what it takes, no matter how long it takes, because every one of you who are watching this video, your situation is different than anybody else's. You know what you've done. You know that it could take some time to get the stuff corrected, but you have to at some point be willing to just dig in and do it. And that gets into the video here. One of the number one issues that we have at the credit repair shop is that when we start to talk to clients or potential clients before they sign up about what's on their credit reports, a lot of people just do not even know what's on their credit reports. It's like they guess, they know that they got declined. Maybe they know that the inquiry from the company that they got declined by is on their credit reports, and other ones that they got declined is on their credit reports, but they don't really actually know what's on their credit report. So the number one thing, the first thing that you got to do, and it can bring up anxiety to some people, is that you got to get your credit reports, and you got to get complete credit reports, none of this free stuff where you're just getting partial reports. You're getting 2 bureaus. You need all of the information. You need all of the details, because it's going to be very, very important for you to be able to move forward. If you just think about it this way, do you want to repair your credit halfway, or do you want to repair your credit fully? And I hope that you're answering that question, that you want to repair your credit fully. So the 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, those are the 3 major credit reporting agencies, and they are who creditors are going to go to get information about if they should loan you money or not loan you money. They're going to go there to get your history. They go there to get any personal information about you. They're going to search there. Those 3 companies, what they do is they are linked in with all of these different companies like LexisNexis. There's landlord reporting agencies. There's all of these different data providers that they feed in. It's just like a search engine. The major search engine, so to speak, would be TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. And when someone a company types in to get information, that information is pulled in from other companies and populated on your credit reports. And so it's very important for you to know what's on those credit reports. So once you get those credit reports, you need to scan through what's on there. In the first section at the top is you need to look at your personal information. You need to know that, number one, are they spelling your name right? Or does your name appear different on each report? Let me tell you why that's very important. If you ever go for a mortgage, and mortgage companies utilize all 3 credit reports. And did you know that you can actually have a point stricken against you if your information does not match on all three credit reports. By that simple inaccuracy. Now, you might be saying, well, I didn't spell my name wrong. I didn't put my name in there wrong. We know that you didn't. Who's done that are the people who were typing in your information when you were when you were applying for credit. Or maybe you typed it in with a certain way when you did it on one website and you went to another website and you maybe typed it in a different way. You spelled it right, but maybe you use your middle initial on the other one. These little bitty things add up to be a lot, because remember, these are computers. Computers are talking to each other. Computers are told by the programmers who write them, which are people who are employed by the companies, to say, hey, if you see this problem, automatically deduct points or automatically decline, automatically deny them of credit. That's the way that it is. Now, if it was manual underwriting, they could ask you a question. Hey, why is your name spelt this way on that report and spelt it another way on this report? Or why is it spelt all of these different ways on the same report? You will be able to answer that question and say, hey, this is the reason why whoever filled out those applications for me with those other companies, they just made a mistake. That's the reason why. But you don't get that opportunity. So now you need to be proactive and get that stuff corrected. So the first thing you need to look at is look at the way that your name is on your credit reports, and you want to send in a document to get that corrected across the board. And then you need to stick to the way that you apply for things with your name, the way that you sign for your name. There's a specific, I did this on accident years ago. One of the things that my mom made me do, I don't know if parents do this nowadays, but my mom made me sit there and write my name over and over and over again. And at some point, I started putting my middle initial. That's why I say, hey, this is Stephen A. Williams with the Credit Repair Shop. That you could credit that to my mother. My mom had me write. I was writing my name, and then there came a time where I changed the way that I wrote my name, and then I kept it that way. And I made sure that on my credit reports that it was the same way. If I would even look at the application, hey, you didn't do this right, get that corrected, because I don't want no questions. On my credit reports, it is like clear, crystal clear across the board. They know who I am, and it's the same way on all three. Now, the next level that you want to look at, and this is very important too, is those addresses. All of those addresses that are on your credit reports, let's start getting rid of that stuff. One of the things that I found is that having these old addresses can attach you to something that a debt collector is trying to do for one of your roommates, or maybe you have a parent that shares the same name as you. I had a client who had their grandfather, they were named after their grandfather. Their grandfather had medical debt that was in his name, and it was linking over because the grandfather was living in the home. They were taking care of him in their home, and the grandson and the grandfather shared the same name, and they were linking all of that medical stuff to the grandson. And we were like, we got to take care of this with those addresses, because what happened is the grandson was not living there anymore, but he had lived there before. So even though he had moved out, the grandfather was in the home with his parents. They were linking all of those medical bills to his name. And that's one of the links, was that address. So think about it this way. When collection agencies insert information, or they're trying to find, where you're at, and they insert that information into the bureaus, one of the ways, this is if you do not respond to that 30-day letter that they send out, one of the ways, this is all they got to do, is that the bureaus don't just kind of let them just throw it on there. They're like, hey, okay, we know that you're our customer, but you got to have some data points that match. So they're going to go with the name. They're going to say, okay, name matches. Next thing they're going to do is they're going to go with the address. They're going to go, okay, address matches. they try to do that Social Security, they'll be like, oh, Social Security don't match. That's why you'll see a lot of times when you dispute and they try to ask you for the Social Security number when you're disputing with a debt collector. No, you don't want to do that. Don't give them that information. You tell them, hey, if you put it on my credit reports, and obviously you must have my information to be able to put it on my credit report, so you have my Social Security number. I'm not going to give it to you. The reason why they were able to get it on there is because they matched other data points. They can match 3 to 4 other data points, like the similar name, the address, that type of stuff. And then they're able to get that information on your credit reports. Because a lot of people are shocked. They're like, this company does not have my Social Security number. How are they even able to get that on my credit reports? Because if somebody's going to run my credit, they got to have my Social Security number. They are doing it because they have other data points that matched, and it's a very low scale that they have to be able to put the information on our credit reports. The bar is lowered. That's the right word. The bar is lowered to allow them to be able to put that information on. And the way that it's lowered is that they just have to have other data points that match. It could be something similar. It could be the name. That's why, it's crazy with the way that this system is being ran, with allowing information to be placed on the credit report. So you want to get rid of those addresses because you don't want to have any of that stuff come back on you. Next thing that you need to take care of is look at your job stuff. If you've worked at a job for a long time, like on my credit reports, one of the things that I had noticed, and I think that it plays a very good part on helping me with whenever I had applied for credit, is that I have my first business that I started on there. And even though I'm not employed by it, I'm the owner, it states on there employer. And it has from 1990. Imagine if, you've been working for a company and you've been at that company for, like me, 34 years, owning my company, but another company, maybe 20 or, 10 years, whatever amount of time it is, and you don't have that information on your credit reports giving you that, the credit for that time. That's very important. Think about it. Lenders are looking at stability. All of these things that they're doing when they're looking at your credit reports, yes, they're looking at the trade lines, which we're going to get into in a second, but think about it. They're looking at stability. How stable is this individual? How long have they worked at their job? This stuff is very important, so don't overlook that. Those are things that you should always want to make sure is correct on your credit reports. And the way to do it is to make sure that you get credit reports that shows all of that information. Now, the next thing that you want to look at is the amount of debt. Like, if one of the easiest ways that you can figure out, how you're doing with your credit. Like in business, what we do is we'll look at the numbers, like how many sales, how many leads, and this type of stuff. When you're running your finances with your household, one of the things that you could do is you could look at, okay, this is the total amount of accounts. And this is a section, I'm going to tell you how you could get these reports in a minute. And then there's like a summary, and it'll give you how many accounts you have, if you have any derogatories, if you have any collections, if you have any, it'll tell you your overall balances, your payments, any public records, your inquiries. It'll tell you all of that type of stuff. And this is going to be like what you're going to compare. This is going to be your starting point, and then in the end, when you make it through your credit repair journey, this is what you're going to really be able to look at to see if you're, if you're number one through the process that you're getting traction. And then at the end of the process, you can look at how far you've made it, because you can look back in the past and say, okay, man, I had all of this stuff. Like this report here that I'm looking at, this young lady had 35 inquiries on TransUnion, 50 inquiries on Experian, and 42 inquiries on Equifax. Total amount of debt was only $44,000, but derogatory accounts was $12,900. over 42 negative collection accounts on her credit reports. And so when you see something like this individual knows that this is gonna be some work. And sometimes people will look at that and they'll be like, it's just too much for me to do. What I tell people to do is just look at that. That's your starting point. Everybody's going to start somewhere. Your situation may be better than someone's or worse than someone's, but this is your starting point. You can never get to the finish line if you don't know where you're starting. And so this is a good way with the credit reports that we provide, is that you can see where you're starting. It has it all listed in a summary. Now, the next thing is where you're going to actually get to see specifically what is going on with your credit. You're going to get to see the trade lines. Now, just to tell you what a trade line is, just in case you don't know, a trade line is a negative or positive mark or information that's on your credit report. So, for example, if you go and get a car, they're going to put that information on your credit reports, and that's a trade line. That's a direct primary trade line. That means that everything that you do on there is going to be credited to you. So if you take care of it, make your payments, you're building history, you're paying down debt, all of that stuff is going to be within that primary trade line. Also, that primary trade line, if you do things that are bad, late payments, maybe you get the car repoed, all of that stuff, that trade line is going to flip over to be a negative trade line. So no matter what, on your credit reports, you have trade lines. So it's just if you're going to take care of that trade line or if you're going to abuse that trade line by, letting it go. Not to say that you're abusing it if you have negative trade lines, because things happen to all of us. I've had negative trade lines in the past. What I'm telling you is that if you can avoid having a negative trade line, you need to do everything possible to do that, because it takes so much. You're going to have to do the work to get that stuff changed over. And then even if you have a positive trade line and you have one late payment, looking at this here on this FICO 8 credit report, the FICO 8 credit system that's out right now, it's going to take 24 months for a late payment to be able to be removed. So now let me explain. If you have a late payment today, if you look at your credit reports, you will see that it has all of these your payment history, and it'll add up to 24 months. If you have one late payment today, it's going to take 24 months for that to move off. And you will see it move down the line as you had that late payment this month. Next month, you make your payment on time, it's going to move over to the next slot. The next month, you make your other payment on time, it's going to move over to the third slot. That's why it's very important not to have late payments on your credit reports, because it takes a lot of work to overcome them. And it's also sometimes very difficult to get those removed. Sometimes you can get the creditor to do a courtesy removal. My company, I do not like to mess with late payments if you have an open account, because of all of the ID theft, all of the misunderstandings that can happen when a creditor gets that disputed item. Some of the times they may think that the whole account is being disputed. Someone doesn't read it properly and they think that you're disputing the whole thing, and they will shut down that account. You don't want that to happen. So the best case is just not to have late payments. You just got to buckle down and budget your money and make those payments. And then if you are finding it hard to keep up with that card, you got to figure out a strategy to pay that card off, and and kind of maintain a budget so you don't fall into that situation. So after you scrutinize all of those trade lines, you're going to look at your primary trade lines and make sure that everything is correct with those. If you've made your payments or just the balances, all of that stuff. Something else to pay attention to: if you pay your bills on like right before they're due or on their due date, you will see that there's like a fluctuation of your credit reports because they're going to, even though you pay it, you will say, hey, my debt should have went down because I made my payments. Reason why it didn't go down on your reports, but it did go down with your actual creditors is because they report sometimes 13 to 14 days or 10 days before the payment is due. And so they're, sending in their information. They're like, hey, this is what we have right now. And maybe you've even added debt since then. Even though you're going to pay it off, you've added some more debt onto your credit cards, for example. And it'll look like you're getting into more debt when you're actually lined up to pay that debt down. But you will see that fluctuation in your credit report. So you got to be very careful. If you're trying to go out there and get something, you're trying to pay attention to your scores. If you're not really paying attention to your scores on that level where you're just like, hey, I'm cruising right now, I know I'm going to pay that off, then, and you're just waiting on, maybe you got an invoice or something if you're a business owner, or maybe you just, waiting to do your payments at that time because that's just the way you budget your money. There's nothing wrong with that because it's not going to hurt you overall because you're actually paying that debt down. And any creditor that looked at your reports, they would see that you're making your payments on time and that you actually are paying off your credit cards or paying off the majority or keeping those balances within that 25 to 30% range because that's where they want to see that you're not overutilizing your credit. So go through, look at all of your positive trade lines, make sure that everything is being reported right, make sure that there's no issues with that. Now let's get into the nitty gritty, which is those collections, those charge-offs, those negative trade line accounts. This information could be added on there from the original creditor where it flipped over and it's a charge-off. Say you had a credit card, you didn't continue paying it. They're going to put that on there as a charge-off. So you're going to have to deal with that. The other types of negative information that could be on there are from collection agencies who have purchased debt from an original creditor, and now they're trying to come after you, and they sent that 30-day letter out, and you didn't respond to that 30-day letter, and then they put that information on your credit reports, and you're like, oh, man, why didn't I respond to that letter? Don't worry, you're going to be able to take care of that. I'm going to give you some information on how you can do that. But you got to deal with this stuff. This is where the work starts to happen. And it's a lot of back and forth because what a lot of people tend to forget, and it's because we focus on ourselves. Like your number one person who you care about is you. And so when you start to work on your credit or you're reaching out to a company to work on your credit, you think that when you submit something that you're like the only person on the planet submitting anything. You don't think that there's maybe millions of other people. Like last report, I think there was like 67 million people who have negative information on their credit report that actually have less than perfect credit. So, let's just say 1 million people out of the 67 million, which I believe is more than that, but let's just say 1 million people sent out a dispute letter that month because they want to get their stuff worked on, and you're part of that. That means that if a bureau gets 1 million documents, 1 million pieces of paper with disputes on there, we divide that up. Let's just say that they don't even take a day off. That means that they have to review 33,000 documents per day without a day off. 33,000 documents. And let's just say that they're doing that 24 hours a day. Let's just divide that up. That means that they got to do 1,388 documents per hour. And we only have 60 minutes in an hour. So if we divide that up, let's just say that they got, maybe they got 100 employees that work in the dispute office. That means that none of them can get sick. That means that none of them can fall behind on their work. That means that none of them cannot get lazy like some of our co-workers do and not do their job. That's why it is a journey. It is a mission. It is something that you have to commit to because it's going to take work. If you just think about it, be logical. When you are logical about your thinking, you will see okay, this could be happening. And we're not in those offices. You are not in those offices. You can't make them do anything. We can't make them do something that they're not going to do with their own process. It's already set. But what you can do is what you control is the disputing process. And you say, hey, if you didn't do it and I didn't get the result I wanted, because this is my reasoning behind the result, I'm going to submit it again. I'm going to submit it again. And we see that over a period of time, just like anything in life, the people who stick to it, the people who allow the process to happen are very successful. So now let's talk about if you have first with the primary negative trade lines, let's just say from a credit card company. If that credit card company has recently charged off your account, then one of the best and quickest ways, if possible, if they haven't sold it, is that you can contact that company and say, hey, I'd like to work out a settlement to just pay this debt. And we have it marked on there paid for less. Like, you just leave it at that, because original creditors will not remove that information like everybody says, like this pay for delete. Original creditors don't get into that type of stuff. But you can have that information placed on there paid for less. And believe it or not, it is not going to harm you like you might think if it just sits on there saying paid for less. Because think about it this way. If you have creditor number one and you have a creditor that's looking to give you credit, and they look on your credit report and they say, okay, you have a charge off from this credit card company and you never paid it, and you have a charge off from the same credit card company and you paid it, who do you think that they would probably give credit to? They would give it to the one who said, hey, we worked out a deal and we ended up getting this taken care of. Here's a little secret that some people don't even know about. And I think that we know about this because we actually deal with these companies, American Express, Discover, all of these, and they hold and maintain their accounts, and they hire companies to sue to get the money for them. These companies actually sent us a letter and said that, number one, thanking us for working out a deal with their client, between them and their client, to get things resolved so they can make, get some money and the client can move on with their life. And they said that please tell your client to please wait 30 to 60 days before applying for another American Express card. Isn't that proof right there? They said wait 30 to 60 days before applying for another American Express card. So think about that. So they're the company that just did a settlement with a customer who had a charge off with them. And now they're saying, hey, Credit Repair Shop, thank you for working out this deal. And please tell your client to wait 30 to 60 days before applying for another American Express card. So it does not look, it is not a bad look to have that still remain on there, but it can be removed, because once they accept that, you can start working on getting that information removed off of your credit reports. And they more than likely, they will not keep that information on your credit reports because it's already been resolved, and they're going to allow you to move forward. Now, if the original creditor sold the debt, the strategy to get that information removed off your credit reports, which is a very good strategy that I made up, that I came up with from just using logic, is that if they accept payment from a third party, in essence, aren't they accepting payment on the account? Or, it's like a gray area. If you accept payment for less on the account from me, it's paid for less. If you accept money from another account, it has to be considered paid for less. If they were to sell the debt to a third party, see, this is where I called them. This is where Mr. Stephen A. Williams called them. Is that I was like, okay, I was reviewing one of my credit reports, and I was like, this is when I had a mortgage years ago, and it was sold to another mortgage company. And on that it said sold to mortgage company and had paid in full. And I was like, okay, I was not involved in that transaction, but they stated it on my credit that it was paid in full. So if we flip that around and we think about it, let's just look at it from the aspect of with a debt collection company. A company is a company is a company who buys a debt from the original creditor. Original creditor accepts payment on that debt. I was not, you're not involved, or we're not involved in that transaction the same way that we're not involved if a mortgage company buys a debt buys a debt from another mortgage company. Not involved in that transaction, didn't sign any documents in that transaction. So using uh, uh, that same logic, that same thought process, was like, aren't these original creditors actually accepting payments for less? And why couldn't letters be crafted to state that information and just see what they do? They were taking information off people's credit reports because they are accepting payments for less, like flat out. They got caught. No one has ever thought about that. I even ran it across my attorney friend. He was like, I never thought about it that way. And here's the crazy thing is he's one of the top New York attorneys for helping people with consumer issues with companies and debt collectors. And he was like, I never, ever thought about it that way. And that's where experience comes in when you start to, think about stuff like that. And there's other things that we utilize here in the credit repair shop that I don't even divulge because these are just company secrets. But that is one that I just helped you out with. I hope you really appreciate that. You can send one of those, what do they call it, chat payments or whatever here on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. So once you've looked at all of that information, you start to see, you wrote down or you circled on your credit reports, this is what I got to deal with. Now you know what you're going to have to start working on. You have all of the information. You're going to start working on it. But before we even get finished, though, is we want to go down some more on those credit reports. We're going to look at all of those inquiries that you had. Like, did you make all of those inquiries? Were you spammed? This is something like a spam by a company, like you went to go get a car loan and all of a sudden they put all of these inquiries on your credit reports. And you're like, I didn't apply at all of these places. I just applied at one place. Or they didn't notify me that they were just throwing it out there to try to see who's going to pay them the most money to bring them a loan. So I want to have all of those removed off my credit reports. And then you just look at to see all of the other credit inquiries that are on there. You pay attention to what's considered a hard inquiry. There's other type of inquiries that are on there that are like factual data where they're just looking to see if you are who you are. That doesn't hurt you. Or there could be promotional inquiries. That type of stuff doesn't hurt you. That's just what internal, where Trade Union, Equifax, Experian, what they're doing is they're actually selling our information to companies to sell us products and services. But those do not hurt you, so don't worry about that. But you want to go through all of those inquiries and you want to deal with those inquiries, because if you think about it, having a company look at that and they're like, you got like this individual right here, 35 inquiries, 50 inquiries, and 42 inquiries. Guess how many inquiries I've had over the last 5 years? One. Over the last 5 years, I've had one inquiry. One inquiry. You don't want to, I'm not saying that one is what you should have, but you should not have this many inquiries on your credit reports, because that's going to be a bad look to anyone that's looking at giving you credit. Now, the next thing is we want to look at those public records. Most public records should not be on your credit reports anymore, but you could have child support on there. You could have a bankruptcy on there. That information can get removed. I don't care what anybody tells you. That information can get removed, and I'm going to give you a link to a video where I show you that we've gotten information like that removed. And if you work hard, you can get it removed. This is the thing that you need to be aware of, though, is that any dispute that you have on that information needs to have some sort of reason behind getting that information removed. It cannot just be that this information does not belong to me or whatever. No, if you have a child support, you need to dig into if you're making the payments, then that needs to be taken off of there. You need to make sure that you were notified that this information could be placed on your credit reports. If you were not notified, that it needs to be taken off there. You need to also see how they got that information on there. We all know that the public records information is sent over by LexisNexis. It's not sent over there by the court. So you want to ask and dispute with the bureaus on how that information was put on there, and that what was the process that was utilized to authenticate that all the information was correct that was placed on there. This will get that information removed, but it takes work. And one of the first things that this is something that a lot of people don't like to do, is that when that information is disputed with the original creditor or the debt collector or the TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, when it's disputed with them, there's going to be information that comes back and you're going to have to read it. And from that is how you craft that response, because it could be simple. Like some of the times we've gotten responses back and we will look at, like the letter that they had, and they said, well, it was, this, let me think of one. One of them was where individuals, they refused to do the dispute because the address information did not match their driver's license, or the individual, the driver's license was out of date, or it could name something about the name or social security number digit was not right. Like these are some things that sometimes people make mistakes on, and it could just kick back the dispute. And then you read it and you're like, I can fix that in 1 second and send that right back. But you don't really know this information because you won't be able to. A lot of people don't want to get the full credit reports, and then a lot of people don't pay attention to the mail that is responded back some of the times from the bureau. So there's going to be two places that you're going to always want to pay attention to when you're disputing. First place is on your credit reports. You're going to look at the comment section on what they wrote in that comment sections from the disputes that were sent out for you. And the other one is any mail that you may get back. If it's something that's more detailed, they're going to send it in the mail, and they're going to put a comment on your bureaus. If it's not something that's specific in detail, they're going to just put the comments on your credit monitoring in the comment section. So it's going to be some back and forth. But if you know if you have a strategy for the information, that information can get removed over time. And so let's see, I want to make sure that I don't forget anything. We got our public records. Yeah, we got everything on there. So just think about it this way. One of the things if you're seeking out a credit repair service, let's quickly talk about some of the things that you need to be aware of. Is number one is get with a company that's going to do the following, and this is what we do. Is that the line of communication is always open by phone, email, live chat, portal, where you can see things that's, where you can communicate back and forth. You need to make sure that you have a way to check things just in case you're working, you're busy, and you're not able to call during business hours. You want to, be able to look and see what's going on. You want to make sure that company is reputable. I think that if you look at my company, Credit Repair Shop, been around since 2006, always here. We do our best. If people aren't happy, we get on the phone, we talk to them, we continue doing work. But we can't satisfy everybody, and no one can ever say that we did not refund their money, because we're not about dealing with people that are not happy. And some of the times people are unhappy for illogical reasons, but I'm of the mindset of more people come to me because they believe, number one, they watch me and they see me here on YouTube and there or other places, maybe at a workshop or somewhere, and they're just like, I'm ready to go through the journey. And like I tell people, it could be a journey depending on what you're facing. It could be a journey. It took me 5 years to get out of my situation. And some of the times people drop off. They think that it's something that's going to happen overnight or it's going to happen in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. They watch all of these videos and they think that it's going to be some type of gimmick. We don't use gimmicks here. And we cannot guarantee how fast things are going to happen for you because of just what I just gave you with the example. 60-something million people have bad credit. If just 1 million of those people are working on their bad credit, look at all of the documents that are passing through. And you think that workers, like think about your coworkers, do they always do their job 100%? Not to say that yours won't be in there, but from what I've seen over the years, it takes work to get this job done. So we're not going to promise how fast it's going to happen. What we do promise is that if you see it through, you will see progress over a period of time, and we'll get you finished regardless. We'll get you finished. If it has to deal with doing settlements to finish you out, if it has to do with calling up debt collectors, whatever we got to do, we're going to do everything it takes. All right, so if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes a Difference, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website, your3scores.com, and the links to both of those are below this video. If you have debt collectors coming after you, let's stop those debt collectors at the beginning. Let's not wait and have them start doing stuff to you. Stop them at the beginning, and you can use my statute of limitations letter for debt that is past the legal statute of limitations to collect, my cease and desist collection activities letter, and my debt validation letter. The link is below this video for all 3 of those letters. Thank you for your time. Please post your questions, comments.